Mishpocha of Yahweh.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome to the Yahweh and Yahshua Speak television show. We are starting another lesson which was done last year, and we got a lot of feedback on it, and for some reason the shows no longer exist on our system. So Yahweh said to bring it again because it's something that we need to know and we need to understand. The title of this lesson is, "And the evening and the morning were the first day." And the evening and the morning were the first day. This is a redo of a time to every purpose. Let's go to Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, so we can get those shows out to the people that were asking about them. Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, and this is a redo of a time to every purpose. And Yahweh has made it better and more binding. Ecclesiastes 3, and we're going to start at verse 1. And the lesson is, "And the evening and the morning were the first day." Ecclesiastes 3 and 1, and let's read it.
To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven.
So here is Yahweh talking about his laws that he has instituted. He's got some cyclical things that happen every day or every 30 days. He's got things that he has put in motion, and or every summer, every spring, every fall. And he says in his word, to everything there's a season, there's a time to every purpose under Shemayim, and he set it up. Let's go to Bereshith, or Genesis, the 8th chapter. Genesis, the 8th chapter. "And the evening and the morning were the first day." We want to see what Yahweh says about that. Bereshith, or Genesis 8, and he's laying the foundation. And we're going to read verse 22. Genesis 8 and verse 22. And it reads,
While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease.
while ha'eret, there's the earth that remains. There will come a time when the earth will melt with fervent heat, but that time has not come yet. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, these cyclical laws, these seasons and time to every purpose under heaven, under Shemayim, that Yahweh has set up, cold and heat, summer and winter, Yom and Lael, day and night, shall not cease. We'll always have that as long as we have an earth. Yahweh wants us to know that observing his weekly Shabbat and holy days from sundown to sundown has been substituted for the time he instituted at the beginning of creation. Let's go to Proverbs, the 23rd chapter. He wants us to know that observing his weekly Sabbath and holy days from sundown to sundown has been substituted for the time he instituted at creation. Yahweh clearly created time by saying that, quote, "the evening and the morning," unquote, constitute days. In Proverbs, the 23rd chapter, we find out, in fact, that this is one of Yahweh's old landmarks. Yahweh has old landmarks. In other words, things he instituted, things he created, things that he began at creation. Proverbs 23 And we're going to read verse 10, and it reads,
Remove not the old landmark, and enter not into the fields of the fatherless.
So Yahweh is our Abba. He's our Father. We're not supposed to act like we are not His children, like we are fatherless. It says, remove not the old landmark. Don't take away what Yahweh has instituted. And enter not into the fields of the fatherless. Those that have rejected Yahweh as their Father. Those that don't have Him leading them and guiding them into all truth. Those that don't have Him showing them what's truth and what's error, what's right and what's wrong. He says, don't go into that field. Let's go to 1 Timothy, the 4th chapter. So Yahweh said not to remove the old landmark. Well, the old landmark of the evening and morning constituting days had been removed. We need to know that this landmark has been removed, and that people are trying to give us a new landmark, sundown to sundown and sunset to sunset. 1 Timothy 4. Yahweh said don't remove it, and that's just one of them that they have removed. 1 Timothy 4, and we're going to read verse 1 and 2, and thus saith Yahweh.
Now the Spirit speaketh expressly, and that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils.
Now, here is Yahweh making it plain. Here's His power source, speaking from Him expressly, explicitly. And He's saying that in the last days, in the latter times, we are in the last days, the last of the last days, says some shall depart from ha'emunah, from the faith, from the old landmarks that Yahweh set up, that Yahweh instituted. How did they depart from it? They gave heed to seducing ruachs and doctrines of demons. They followed Hasatan instead of Yahweh. They relied on their own mind instead of looking at what Yahweh has told them in His Word and going back and seeking Yahweh for understanding about what He said so then they can do it. They have created something that is not the old landmark that Yahweh set up. And He said it will especially be prevalent in the latter times or the last days. Mm-hmm. He wants us to know that these people have departed from the faith. Talking about the faith of Yahweh, not just a faith. From the foundations of Yahweh. Verse 2.
Speaking lies in hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron.
It says they're speaking lies. They're hypocrites. He said their conscience, which is their ruach, that Yahweh has put within them to hook up with Him and to be able to communicate back with Him by His ruach joining with their ruach, is seared with a hot iron. Consciences that are seared with a hot iron are people that are branded with the marks of sin. They carry about a perpetual consciousness of sin. You have some people telling you you're in the flesh, you're going to sin. You don't see that in Yahweh's Word from Genesis to Revelation. You have people telling you that your flesh has to have a loophole because you have a flesh and blood body, so you're going to stumble along the way. Yahshua showed us that that is an untruth, that we can get to the point where when we're walking in the Ruach, when we're letting Yahweh lead us and guide us, we don't have to stumble. And if we stumble, which is not a lifestyle, we're not supposed to think we're so weak that we can't stand up and be righteous and do things like Yahweh said. That's why Yahshua came, to show us, yes, it can be done. That's why he took on this flesh and blood body, to show us how to do it. But these people with consciences that are seared with a hot iron, they have a perpetual consciousness of sin. You have people that made songs, I'm just a sinner, old sinner, saved by pain or saved by grace. Well, which one are you? Are you an old sinner, or are you saved by grace? Those are diametrically opposed. Those do not coexist together. Either you're a sinner or you're saved by grace. Either you're with Yahweh or you're against him. This sin consciousness causes these people to become hardened to the old landmarks of Yahweh. So when Yahweh brings revelation, because we were the ones that were deceived, and Yahweh's going to show us, the whole world, he said, was deceived. We were in that deception. And in some areas, he's still bringing us up out of deception. So we shouldn't be smug and think that we have never been deceived. Yes, we have. But this sin consciousness causes people to become hardened to the old landmarks of Yahweh. Let's go to Hebrews, the 3rd chapter. So when Yahweh comes, bringing his revelation, telling truth, the hardness and the deceitfulness of this sin consciousness causes them to reject it, causes them to be smug and think they know some things that they don't know. Hebrews 3, and we're going to start at verse 13. And Hebrews 3 and 13 reads,
But exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin.
So sin, having a conscience seared with a hot iron, it makes you hard. It makes you turn a deaf ear to Yahweh. As Yahweh said about his people, it makes them jerk away the shoulder and have a stiff neck and not want to hear the truth of how Yahweh did things at the beginning or at any other time. They want to make their own way and then think Yahweh's going to say, oh, okay, well, you want to do it that way, so I'm going to make a special exception for you and let you do it that way. That is being deceived. He said, lift up one another every day. Today is the day to lift up, to encourage, to help people to go on with Yahweh, to show people the way to submit to Yahweh and receive when he's giving forth his revelation. He said, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. And sin makes us pull away from Yahweh. Adam and Hawa were running to Yahshua in the garden until they sinned. Then they went and hid themselves. So that makes you pull away from Yahweh and harden yourself to Yahweh. Verse 14.
For we are made partakers of Mashiach, if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast unto the end.
15.
While it is said, today, if ye will hear his voice, harden not your hearts, as in the provocation.
So we are a part of Mashiach only if we keep our first love. Only if we keep that fire burning bright. And the way we keep the fire burning bright is let Yahweh keep putting wood on it, which is his revelation knowledge. Don't stop him from putting wood on it. Don't get presumptuous like we know it all, or we know what Yahweh is showing us until he actually shows it to us, and accept it when he shows it to us. It said, today if you hear Ruach HaKodesh speaking his voice, don't harden your mind. Don't close your mind down. Like the children of Israel did in the wilderness. And what did they do? The majority of them wandered around for 40 years until they all died, except for the generation that was under 20, and a couple of the brothers, we know Yahshua and Caleb were of the older generation above 20, and they didn't die in the wilderness. They ended up going on into the promised land. But if you harden your mind, like Yahweh says, you resist Hasatan, don't resist Yahweh. You submit to Yahweh, then you resist Hasatan.
That's right.
That's why Yahweh is showing us. He said in the evening and the morning were the first day. But we need to understand that there has been a substitution put in there. And people are trying to make you believe that sundown to sundown and sunset to sunset is equal to the evening and the morning. And Yahweh's going to show us the way to study it out. And see, he hasn't changed. We were deceived. That's why we went off on this tangent. Verse 16.
For some, when they had heard, did provoke, howbeit not all that came out of Egypt by Moshe.
So everybody didn't get caught up in the wilderness. Everybody doesn't resist Yahweh. There are some that welcome revelation knowledge from Yahweh because they want to go on with Yahweh. They don't want to get stuck. They understand Yahweh is the one that's leading them down the path to the kingdom. And no man is leading them. It's Yahweh's personal power source leading us down to the kingdom. And we can stop at any time by rejecting what he's showing us. Let's go to Romans, the 10th chapter. But as Yahweh's representatives in the earth, we are required to observe his seventh-day Sabbath and his holy days according to the time that he instituted at creation. As his people, we are required, it's not an option, to observe the weekly Shabbat and his yearly holy convocations according to the time he instituted at creation. Time hasn't changed. We changed. But Yahweh is bringing us back.
Hallelujah.
Romans 10. And I want to go all the way back. We should all want to go all the way back. Romans 10, and we're going to read, start at verse 1. Romans 10 and verse 1, and it reads.
Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to Elohim for Israel is that they might be saved.
So this is all of our Yahweh's people's desire, because it's Yahweh's desire that his people should be saved. And we should pray, Tefillah, Halal, that Yisrael be saved. This is just not talking about natural Yisrael. This is talking about spiritual Yisrael. All of Yisrael that Yahweh has called, people out of every nation. We should pray for Yahweh's people that they should welcome the knowledge that Yahweh has given them so they can progress and continue on down the path to the kingdom. Verse 2.
For I bear them record that they have a zeal of Elohim, but not according to knowledge.
So, here's the testimony. And Shaul is saying they do have that excitement, they have that enthusiasm about serving Yahweh. But it's in ignorance in some instances. He says they're lacking knowledge. In Hosea, he said, my people are perishing. They're going the wrong direction. Why? Because there's some knowledge, and Yahweh's not withholding it, but there's some knowledge that's coming out that the people are not taking in and receiving. The truth is, they have a zeal of Elohim. They're going after Elohim, but in ignorance. It's not according to the knowledge that Yahweh has left here about himself and about the laws that he instituted. Verse 3.
For they, being ignorant of Elohim's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of Elohim.
So Yahweh is saying, his people, they have a zeal of him, but they are ignorant of how to walk in righteousness, how to be righteous, how to appropriate the righteousness that Yahshua purchased for them at Calvary. It says, Yahshua became righteousness for us, and he exchanged our sin for his righteousness. And you have people out here telling you, you don't have anything till you die and get your glorified body. You just a raggedy old sinner, and you can sin at any moment because you're in the flesh. So you weak worm, you don't even try to be right because you can't do it. Well, that is not what Yahweh said in his word. It says they are ignorant, don't know anything about Elohim's righteousness, Sadakah. So they go about to make their rules and regulations about what's right and what's not. And by doing that, it says they have not submitted themselves unto what Yahweh clearly said in his word is righteousness. We don't want to be part of that group. Let's go to YHWH or Isaiah the 64th chapter. Substituting sundown to sundown for evening and morning is us establishing our own righteousness. And that's just one of the ways. But that's one that has become very widespread. Being ignorant of Yahweh's righteousness, it is possible for us to go about and establish our own righteousness. But guess what that gets us? Nothing. You're wasting time. Yahshua or Isaiah 64, and we're going to start at verse 6. Isaiah 64, and let's read verse 6.
But we are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousness are as filthy rags, and we all do fade as a leaf, and our iniquities, like the wind, have taken us away.
So he said, when you substitute something for what Yahweh set up, you're just giving Yahweh a filthy rag. Whatever you make up, it says a man in his own mind, he thinks he's all right with everything he does. But Yahweh let us know, no, we're not all right. We are as the unclean thing, and our righteousnesses, whatever we set up that is not backed up in Yahweh's word, are as filthy rags. And we're going to fade as a leaf. And the wind's going to take us away. But Yahweh said whatever he's done is going to last forever. And all we have to do is look outside and see. It is lasting forever. Until, like he said, as long as the earth remains, until the earth comes to an end. Verse 7.
And there is none that calleth upon thy name, that stirreth up himself to take hold of thee. For thou hast hid thy face from us, and hast consumed us because of our iniquities.
So it's our fault. If we're separated from Yahweh, if things aren't going right with us, it's our fault. Yahweh said there's none that kara upon his shem, that stirs up himself. We have to stir up ourselves to take hold of the truth that Yahweh offers us. We don't need to be looking around to see how many people, this is not a democracy, how many people agree with what Yahweh said. And that's where most people miss the boat. They're looking to see where the majority of the people are going. The majority of people are going to the lake of fire. There's none that kara upon Yahweh's shem, that stirs up himself to take hold of Yahweh. No matter how few people agree with it, once you see it, once we see it from his word, we are required to stand on it, because that's the truth. And it said, because of this, Yahweh's hid his face from people. And he's allowed them to be consumed. Why? Because they love darkness rather than light. They like what they made up better than the truth of what Yahweh actually did. Let's go to YHWH 40. So the location at which Yahweh instituted time has everything to do with us understanding why he revealed to us that days 1, 2, and 3 were completed without the creation of the sun. Yahweh revealed it to us for a reason. Days 1, 2, and 3 were created without the sun. So where was the creation location where Yahweh instituted time? Where was that? Through research, Yahweh has shown us that it was at the equator. YHWH, or is Isaiah 40, and we're just going to read one verse, verse 22. And it reads,
It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in.
Now, the circle of the earth, we're talking about Yahweh sitting on the circle of the earth. The circle of the earth is nothing but the equator. It is an imaginary line that goes through the center of the earth, by which scientists have measured how far the planets are from the earth, how far the sun is from the earth. They've made longitudinal lines and latitudinal lines. They've measured the distances between countries. They've used the equator to do all these things. This imaginary line that's around the earth. And it's a perfect 360 degrees, and they've got it divided in sections. You get any globe or look at any map, and then you can see that they took this circle of the earth, the equator, and it says that Yahweh is sitting on it. This was a location that Yahweh first created and instituted time. So when you're reading in Bereshith, Genesis, the first chapter, you're reading first and second chapter, you're reading about the equator. It's a little known fact that at the creation location, at the equator, the evening still perfectly coincides with sundown and sunset. And the morning still perfectly coincides with sunrise. They both occur the evening at the equator or sundown and sunset at 6 p.m. and the morning or sunrise at 6 a.m. every single day. It hasn't changed. Every single day. At the creation location, the evening and morning consist of 12 hours of darkness and 12 hours of light, like clockwork. 6 p.m. and 6 a.m., 24-hour perfect days. Now I have some articles here that I'm just going to read from, and then we're going to get back to the scripture. On the web, these people from Agape Bible Study, the title of this is The Hours of Prayer for the Old Covenant Church in the 1st Century A.D. It says, the next day began at sundown or about 6 p.m. Now this is a Sunday church. And it's talking about sundown at 6 p.m. See, what happened was people revised the dictionaries, and then people decided, oh, sundown means sundown. No, you got to see what Yahweh is talking about when he instituted time. This article is The Wisdom of Elohim, and it says that the Sabbath is from sundown, in parentheses, 6 p.m. On Friday to sundown, in parentheses, 6 p.m. on Saturday. And it's a time for rest. So that's the wisdom of Elohim. So that's 2 witnesses. Here in this article, and this is from First Tabernacle Fellowship, a Hebraic Messianic Ministry in Sacramento, California. And they say that service order on October 9th begins at 6 p.m. and our holy convocation ends. So during that year, that was Yom Kippur. And it said, it ends at 6 p.m. Why? Because they understood 6 to 6. They understood the institution of time. Here we go with our 4th witness. This is from Jewish time divisions in the 1st century AD. The 12th hour, 6 p.m., equals sundown. And it's got all the hours going down, and I'll probably make you a copy of this chart. But the 12th hour, 6 p.m., sundown. They got the 1st hour, dawn, 6 a.m. or morning. Here's our 5th witness. This is from the chronology of the Passover week. The biblical day equals sundown to sundown, 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. And this chart is from the book Coming Out of Egypt, Volume 1, The Journey Out of Idolatry Begins. Here is our 6th witness. And this is from a church newsletter. And this is a Sunday pastor again. And this is Pastor Rob Purdy. And he's talking about Good Friday. Mm-hmm. But then he goes on. He says, Good Friday is on the 6th of April. Passover also begins that night. He says, the biblical day is from sundown to sundown. He puts in parentheses, 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. The day is split up into 2 parts. The evening runs from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So where'd this guy get this stuff from? He just had an open mind. And Yahweh showed him something, all these people, where when you let Yahweh show you, then you'll see it too. Mm-hmm. Said, the evening runs from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and the morning runs from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. The evening part of this 24-hour period is between noon to 6 p.m. Therefore, between the evenings is 3 p.m., exactly the time that Jesus died on the cross. So we're going to look at that later. Here's another witness. And the name of this article is Easter Chronology. Mm-hmm. It says, the confusion over the day that Christ was crucified is due to 2 things, tradition and ignorance of the scriptures. He says, remember, our time makes any day run from 12 midnight to 12 midnight. Where do they get that from? 24 hours. They know there's a time. That's how Yahweh instituted it. That's what the Romans did. They made it midnight to midnight. Where did they get that from? They copied it off of Yahweh. He says, but the Jewish day is from sunset, in parentheses, here we go again, 6 p.m. till sunset. Here we go again, 6 p.m. And we have another witness. This is from www.timegenie.com. This article says it's about fascinating time zones and understanding time zones. Along the equator, or close to the equator, sunrise and sunset occur at approximately the same time throughout the whole year. Yahweh's time hasn't changed. We change. He always going to show us. Man got kicked out of the garden. It says, a country near the equator will generally have this time. 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. throughout the whole year. It doesn't change. They don't do this crazy thing like some people do, flip back and forth with daylight savings time. All right, let's go to Bereshith or Genesis, the first chapter. So in the first page of the first chapter of the Bible, first page, first chapter, Yahweh himself established the reality for us that time was instituted without using the sun and without it even being created. That is significant. Yahweh himself established that. Genesis or Bereshith, chapter 1, and we're going to read verses 18 and 19. Let's read Genesis 1 and 18, please.
And to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And Yahweh saw that it was good.
All right. He made something to rule over Hayam and over Halayel. And we're going to see later on what it was. And he made these two things to divide or light from the darkness. And it says Elohim saw it was told, it was good. Verse 19.
And the evening and the morning were the fourth day.
Now we're going to see later he was referring to the sun and the moon. He made them, the sun to rule over the day and the moon to rule over the night and to divide light from darkness. But meanwhile, he had created days 1, 2, and 3. So what's up, Yahweh? We need to find out. We can't just jump in there and guess and tell Yahweh what he thinks or what he did. He tells us what he did. He said, and the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Let's go to Galatians, first chapter. Yahweh is the one who made it crystal clear that even after he created the sun, he knew the evening and morning constituted days. Anyone who lacks understanding or whose consciences are seared, which means hardened by sin, view the sun not being created until the fourth day as a problem that they need to solve. They say, just throw away the first 3 days of creation, days 1, 2, and 3, and start counting on the fourth day. Galatians, the first chapter, and read verses 11 and 12.
But I certify you, brethren, that the gospel which was preached of me is not after man.
So this is not something that we said. We just saw it in Yahweh's word. And you can go back and read in Genesis yourself. We're going to go there. We may not get there today, but we're going to go there. And so Yahweh's going to tell us himself that he's talking about the sun and the moon. And after that, after he created them, he still said in the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Here in Galatians, the first chapter, he's saying, I certify. Like you can go down and you can get just a regular copy of something, or you can get a certified copy of a court document, which means it's really official. And they give you a raised seal and stuff like that. So that's the real deal. He says, I certify unto you all, or brethren, that the doctrine that was preached of me is not after man. So when we're saying what Yahweh said, he didn't use the sun to create the first, second, and third days. And for those that say, well, you should throw out those 3 days and then start counting time on the fourth day because you have the sun, then they're not understanding how Yahweh instituted time, the reality of time. They're thinking that they need the sun. Well, if Yahweh didn't need the sun, what we need to do is get wisdom to find out Why didn't he need the sun? And we're going to find out, because it has nothing to do with when a day starts or ends. Verse 12.
For I neither received it of man, neither was I taught it, but by the revelation of Yahshua Mashiach.
This is the only way we could get this. We were observing days from sundown to sundown and sunset to sunset. And we opened ourselves up to the revelation that Yahweh showed us. And one of the things he showed us was he didn't use the sun on the first 3 days of creation. And even after he created the sun, he still said the evening and the morning were the fourth day. So we finally saw it. Then Yahweh showed us the creation location, the Garden of Eden, which was at the equator. And then he showed us that at the equator, there are always perfect 24-hour days from the evening, 6 p.m., and the sun goes down at that time, until 6 p.m. And the sun rises at 6 a.m. Every single day. Nothing has changed except man got kicked out of the garden, and then man got deceived. Let's go to Genesis, Bereshit. Let's look at it. Bereshit, the 2nd chapter. So Yahweh put a tropical rainforest called the Garden of Eden at the equator. This is the first location that we see Yahweh talking about in the Bible. So when you hear the word garden, you think about some little bitty something. But this was a lush tropical rainforest. And when you look and see after Adam and Hawa sinned and they got kicked out of the garden, it only talks about Yahweh putting this cherubim with the flaming sword at the entrance of one part of the garden. Why? Because it was a tropical rainforest. They couldn't get in any other way. He only had to guard one way. At the equator and at the Garden of Eden, the first location that Yahweh talked about, the day evening starts at exactly 6 p.m. Always. Still does. Genesis 2, and we're going to pick it up at verse 8. Genesis 2 and verse 8. And thus said Yahweh.
And Yahweh Elohim planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed.
Now, if you know anything about your history and your geology, and they didn't, really tell us too much when we were going to school because they didn't want us to figure out that it was over there in Africa. Everybody that has been trying to find what's called the cradle of civilization, they call it Mesopotamia, they call it Sumeria, just the first place where man was. They go over there in Africa, in North Africa, and parts of the Middle East, looking and digging for bones, looking for Lucy. I don't know what the name of the latest black fossil is that they're looking for, that they claim is the missing link between man and ape. And the only reason they're saying that it's a missing link between man and ape is because they know it was a black person. They know Adam was black, but they don't want to admit that the Bible is true, so they won't use the word Adam. They'll use, Lucy, or use some other, Australopithecus or something like that. But they go over there, and they dig over there, because why? This is where Yahweh first instituted. This is the first location that he dealt with on the earth. He planted a garden eastward in Eden. There he put the man whom he had formed. They're not digging over there for nothing. Scientists have done lots of research, and they keep going back over there because that's where Yahweh put it. Verse 9.
And out of the ground made Yahweh Elohim to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
So we're talking about trees, not little scrawny, things that you see. We're talking about trees like the cedars of Lebanon, like the redwoods in Southern California. I mean, these are like trees, big, wide, trees. Again, when we hear the word garden, we don't really get the idea of this tropical rainforest, because that's what's at the equator. Tropical rainforest. You think about the Amazon rainforest, and there are no paths that are cut in these different forests. So out of the ground he made to grow every tree. A tree, not a little sprig, but a tree.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 10.
And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted, and became into four heads.
And now this is how they know how to go to, because they go to the place where these rivers meet up, and then Yahweh mentions some countries like Ethiopia and different ones, and where the trees went through or they come past, and so they go over there and they dig. All right, verse 11.
The name of the first is Pison. That is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold.
12.
And the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium and the onyx stone.
All right, so there's a reason why the people of that country over in the land of Ham, what's been renamed Africa, are being displaced by Afrikaners and different ones.
Mm-hmm.
They went to the Bible and they saw this. They got the gold over there, they got the diamonds, they got all kind of stuff. And they're squeezing them off to a further and further, little corner, while they build all these, big houses, and while they mine for diamonds, and while they get the precious metals and they get the gold. It says, the name of this river, Pison, compasses the whole land of Havilah, where there's gold, and the gold that land is Tov, it's good. There's also these other stones, bdellium and onyx stone. Believe me, they're over there and they're mining those stones and they're getting rich off of it. Verse 13.
And the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia.
Now here they have another reference talking about this land that compasses the land of Ethiopia. And we're talking about the evening and the morning were the first day. And we're looking at how Yahweh instituted time and how people have substituted, because we went in deception, they substituted the sun going down, sundown to sundown, for the evening and the morning. And when Yahweh is coming, giving them revelation knowledge, showing them the creation location, and the fact that days are still perfect 24 hours, and they start at 6 p.m. and they end at 6 p.m., then they want to reject the revelation knowledge that Yahweh has given them. But we don't want to be like that. We want to move on with Yahweh. Because at whatever point you reject what Yahweh is showing you, you're going to get stuck right there.
Right.
Why should he show you anything else if you reject the truth that he's given you?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have any time to waste. Verse 14.
And the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is it which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates.
So Yahweh pinpointed where the Garden of Eden was. Pinpointed the cradle of civilization. The scientists can rename it all they want. We as Yahweh's people and as Bible students should understand this is where they got it from. This is how they got a clue. You heard that thing, clueless? They would have been clueless except Yahweh had put it in here. This is a road map. And all you have to do is look over there and see. They are mining the road map. They're following the road map. Verse 15.
And Yahweh Elohim took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it.
So Yahweh put the man there to maintain the garden. It was going to grow because it's a tropical rainforest, and to give the man an identity and a job, he put him there. Let's go to Yachanan or John, the 11th chapter. So the morning starts at approximately 6 a.m. every single day with no variation ever. People renamed this creation location. Yahweh called it Garden of Eden or Eden. They call it paradise. They call it the cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia, Sumeria. Throughout the Bible, Yahweh's institution of time is confirmed throughout the Bible. We don't just have to stay in Genesis, the first chapter, to find out the evening and the morning make up days. We can look at Yahshua here in Yachanan or John, the 11th chapter. He confirmed Yahweh's creation of time way over here in the New Testament. And there's a bunch of confirmation in the New Testament as well as the Old. Yachanan 11, and let's read verse 9.
Yahshua answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of the world.
So, Yahshua is talking about a couple of different things in here. But the first thing he's talking about, he wasn't asking a question. Yahshua wasn't ignorant of what Yahweh had created. Matter of fact, he's the one that created everything. You can see in Yachanan, the first chapter, it said that Hadabar, in the Greek logos, was with Elohim, and Hadabar, or the word was Elohim. And then you read a little further down in Yachanan or John, the first chapter, and talks about how Hadabar, or the word, became flesh and dwelt among men. So that was Yahshua. And he just commenting in one part of this verse on what he did at creation, at the first location. He answered, are there not 12 hours in Hayam? He's just talking about the light part of the day. He knows that there's 24 hours. Then you got some people that try to go brain dead and then act like it's only 12 hours in the day. It's like, what school have you been to? The school of retardation? You know, what did you drop out in first grade? Let's go back to Bereshit. So here's Yahshua just confirming it in one place, and before the lesson is over, Yahweh will show us it's confirmed throughout the book. At the creation location where Yahweh instituted time, evening and sundown and sunset still coincide perfectly with each other. Again, nothing changed except we got kicked out of the garden. We're no longer there. If all of us were back at the Garden of Eden, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Nobody would be telling you to watch the darkness or the lightness of the sky. Why? Because they perfectly coincide. 6 p.m., boom, sundown. 6 a.m., boom, sunrise. Still happening. We just way over here. How far are we away from where we just read about where the Garden of Eden was? We're a long way away. I don't know how many thousands of miles, but we're a long way away. There's an ocean between us, maybe a couple, and the location that Yahweh first instituted time. So here Yahweh brought the evidence that he created time without the sun being involved in the first chapter of the first book of the Bible. So why is there so much confusion about it? Man wants to go about establishing his own righteousness. And he wants Yahweh to say, oh, high five. Sundown and sundown is the same as the evening and the morning. Come on, Yahweh not going to do that. He knows what he's talking about, and we need to find out what he's talking about. Genesis, the first chapter, Here's Yahweh giving us the evidence. Genesis 1, and we're going to start at verse 17.
And Yahweh.
Sorry, Genesis 1, 13.
13.
I want you to read 1 and 13. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Genesis 1, and let's read verse 13.
And the evening and the morning were the third day.
Okay, now, we read about something that happened on the fourth day a little earlier. Now, here's Yahweh saying the evening and the morning were the third day.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's going to let us know the sun had not been created yet. So you got some people that will say, well, hey, Yahweh really can't keep track of time because he didn't have the sun and the moon. You have people that had the gall
Right.
to approach you with that
Dumb thing.
nut stuff.
Dumb stuff.
Again, with that, lobotomy stuff. Verse 14.
And Yahweh said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
Okay, so we're talking about the stars now. Lights in the firmament of Shemaiah. They're going to divide Hayam from Halayel, and then he's kind of talking about the sun and the moon, but he goes down and he specifically brings you the evidence that they hadn't been created